Greetings, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this recorded webinar. Since we are doing a recorded webinar, hopefully, which is more convenient for you all, there will not be a time for questions. However, at the end of the training webinar, my email address will be there so you can send me questions or comments or anything you may need for the upcoming conference. We do have some new moderators this year, so I want to say welcome. For those of you that are returning from moderating previous conferences, I've never had my photo on the training before, but since we have new moderators, I wanted to give them an idea of who to flag down at the conference. If they needed some help or if I walked in the room, started asking questions, they would have a general idea of who I was and that I was there to help them with anything they needed. So with that, we will move along. Hopefully you have got all of your speakers set up and registered for the conference. We have sent out several emails, and hopefully all of that is taken care of. We did the moderator information by iPad several years ago in efforts to get rid of paper bios. In the past, we would have envelopes with bios of all the speakers in the rooms. You would have to shuffle through the bios, and sometimes they weren't updated, things like that. Also, the moderator report was something that had to be filled out on a piece of paper. And years ago, we had a grand total of about 10% that was returned once the conference was over. So we did not get much feedback when it came time to collecting those moderator reports. When we had the idea of using the moderator iPads, things turned around very quickly. We were able to upload bios straight into the iPads. The reports generated from the iPads come in at about 95%. A lot of conferences, we will actually have 100% participation in the reporting process, which really helps the program committee. So when you walk into your session room, first thing you do need to do is go by the registration desk and pick up your name badges. And you will get a program at that point which will say what room you will be in. Once you go into the room, on the front table, you will see a iPad laying on that table. And once you pick up that iPad, and I'm sorry, but I'm having technical difficulties here. Okay, let's try this. There we go. Once you pick up the iPad on the front table, we do not tether them down anymore. There were several reasons not, so it should just be laying there on the table. So once you pick it up, you just press the little center button there. If you're familiar with iPads, it'll be kind of self-explanatory, but you just slide it open to unlock the iPad. Each session room will have their own iPad assigned to it, and you will understand the reasons why that's important a little later on. Once you open it up, there's every background of the iPad is created specifically for this event. So up here you have the instructions. If you don't have your instructions ahead of time, or if you do not know what you're supposed to be doing as the moderator, you can click on these instructions and it will give you a step-by-step breakdown of what you need to do as the session moderator. Those are always there. They're always up to date, so you can refer to them at any time. Once you're familiar with that, the next one, and probably the most popular, is the bios button. These bios are slightly different than the ones we did when it was on paper, because when it was the paper version, you only receive the bios of your session. When you click on this bio button, you will see the entire list of bios for the entire conference. So you have to scroll down to your particular session to find the bios for the session you're moderating. So when you open it up, it will not be just the bios for your particular session. Being that this is an iPad, you can use your fingers to make things larger. You can shrink it down, scroll, all that kind of good stuff. Now, keep in mind, these bios a lot of times are cut and pasted from resumes, things like that. You do not have to read word by word. I suggest that you go through and look at your bios ahead of time and then paraphrase if you like. If you feel more comfortable reading the whole thing, that's perfectly fine as well. If your session is running a little bit behind and you need to pick up the pace, feel free to paraphrase. If you get to a speaker and there is no bio, that means we did not receive one. At this time, we have several speakers that we have not received bios for, and we are putting out desperate calls to get their info in for several reasons. A couple we will cover later on in this training. But if you have a blank speaker, that means we did not receive their bio. Moving on, the next tab is the program tab. This is the most up-to-date program, which will be much more updated than the printed version. The printed version goes to the printers a little over 30 days prior to the conference. So anything that has changed within the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, will not be in that printed version. So I highly recommend you use the online technical program or the app, which we will cover a little later on. But the online version is much more updated. So your printed programs or the clarifiers will have some things that have been updated that we were not able to change because of the printing deadline. As you'll see, when you pull it up, you will see basically what it looks like on the printed version, just some updated information. Now, this is the technical program on the iPad. If you're using the app, which we will talk about a little later, it looks a little bit different. So it acts more, well, it is a full-fledged conference app. So on the iPads, this helps because it looks just like what you're used to seeing in planning of the program and things like that. The session moderator report, let me back up because I'm missing a tab here, but the session moderator report is right here. I don't have a circle over it, but if you'll notice, it's in the top corner. And during each presentation, we ask that you do a report on each speaker. This information is very important because this lets the program committee know if this speaker should be asked to come back, if this speaker needs to be asked to do a session at a different conference, if they ought to put this in the Georgia operator, and also if it was an awful presentation and we just need to not have them return. This information is not shared. It is not public information. It's only reviewed by the program committee chair. And if all the comments are positive, then we will bring this up in meetings. But we ask for your candid comments in here because we need to know what you actually thought. If it was a awful presentation and they looked at the screen and read it word by word, we need to know that. If it was a 100% sales pitch, we need to know that. If it was a great presentation, obviously, we would like to know that as well. But your thought of the session is very important. So this is something that I ask you take very seriously. You will see up here when it asks you to choose your session, there will be a drop-down list that will have each session that you will be moderating. So just pick which session you're in. Do not go by this list right here because this actual picture is from a different conference, but the iPad will be updated during the annual conference, so just pick your session number. When you go down, your moderator name, title of the presentation, speaker name, and so on, please fill those in. Now, on the title of the presentation, you do not have to put word by word what the title of the presentation is. Some of the presentations are very long, and like I say, you do not have to put it word for word. We just need to know which paper you're talking about in the session. The most important thing is the number of attendees. Please do not guess. You do not have to literally count and get it to a specific 64 people, but if you have 20 people in your session, please don't put 50. We have literally had people put numbers in here that was not possible because the room capacity would not handle that. There have been times that we have had sessions that were standing room only, but when the moderator report came back, it was not standing room only. A lot of times that is because there are seats up front. People don't like to sit next to each other. They like to keep a chair in between them, whatever. But when the committee comes together to talk about if we need to enlarge the size of the rooms, and then we go back to the reports, and all of the reports are showing that everyone should have been able to fit in those rooms just fine, then that gives us hesitation on doubling the size of the rooms. So be sure that you accurately reflect the number of attendees. The speaker rating is also very important. We want to know if it's outstanding, good, or average, or not so much. There may be, I thought there was a no-show in there, but we have very few no-shows, so we may have taken that option out. The next one would be the presentation should be published. This means should it be published in the Georgia Operator. If you check yes on this, Angela in our office will reach out to that speaker and ask if they would like to publish their presentation in the next upcoming issue of the Operator. So keep that in mind when you check that. And then obviously moderator comments, we ask that you be candid. Tell us your honest opinion on how the session went. And again, we ask that you do that for each session. A lot of people ask, do I do that during the next presentation? Do I do it at the end? Do I do it at the beginning? Well, it would be hard to do it at the very beginning, but when you do it, it's totally up to you. A lot of people will do the report for the previous speaker as soon as the next speaker starts, so he can go ahead and get that one out of the way and pay attention for the next one. Some people will wait till the very end and do all three at one time. It is totally up to you, and there is no rhyme or reason or no right or wrong way to doing it. It's just whatever works best for you. Moving on, the next thing you'll see down here, we've covered all of them at the top, the instructions, the bios, the program, and the presentation report. The next thing I want to point out at the bottom is the clock. Most iPads, iPhones, Androids have clocks on them, but the thing I want to point out is this makes a good timer you can use that you can set for 30 minutes or 20 minutes if you want to allow for question and answers. And you can have something you can hold up and show the speaker. Instead of having to wave your arms or get their attention, you can just have the iPad up and show them, hey, you've got, you're 20 minutes into your 30 minutes or whatever the time may be at that particular point in the session. So you can use that if you like. Probably one of the most important features is this little orange button down here, which is called Voxer. Voxer is a two-way communication tool that we use if you need assistance inside of your session. Years ago, before we started doing the iPads, if the projector didn't work or if the computer went off or if there was something wrong with the presentation, the moderator would have to leave the room, run down to registration, ask for technical help, and then they would call someone on the radio, we would come to the room, so forth. This way you have a direct communication with several people on the GAWP staff. So Voxer basically turns an iPad or your iPhone or Android phone into a walkie-talkie, more or less. So all you need to do, all of this will already be set up on the iPad, but if you need help or if you need assistance in your room, you can click on the little orange button, which is Voxer. At that point, you will see Voxer come up and it says GAWP help. And you click on that. You will notice right here that it will have meeting room and whatever number you're in. Not the actual room number, but it's the order of room going down the hallway. So at this year's conference, we have 7 concurrent sessions. If you are the last one on the hallway, you will be number 7. If you're right in the middle, you may be number 3 or 4. So that lets me know, or whoever takes the call, what room you're in, so you don't have to tell us. We know as soon as we get the call where you're calling from. So you just simply tap on this and it brings up a blank screen. At the bottom, you see a little walkie-talkie. You press and hold this little button and basically start talking. And I immediately hear you coming through my phone. So you can say, hey, the screen is not working or the projector is not working in our room. We need some help. Then I will immediately talk back to you and say, okay, I'm on the way, or okay, someone is on the way. Now, a point here is that is a walkie-talkie version. So you will hear it verbally when I respond back to you. Let's say that the presenter is still talking and you're trying to get this fixed while he's still talking, so you don't want an audible conversation going back and forth over the iPad disturbing his talk. So you have the option, is besides pushing the little walkie-talkie button, you can tap on start typing, the keyboard will pop up, and you can type me a message. And if you type me a message and say the projector's not working in my room, then I will type you back, because I will know that if you type me a message, that means that something's being said or talked about, and you don't want the sound coming back over your iPad. So I will reply back to you with text. So you've got two options. You can use it as a walkie-talkie and talk to me, or you can text by this and I will immediately get your message. When I say me, it will be myself or another person on GWP staff, and we will come help you out. So this is a great communication tool that all the iPads will have, and it will let us know if you need help in your session. One of the last two things that we want to cover here is over here on the right, you see the camera. All these devices have cameras. If something is really cool in your session, they have great communication, or you've got a packed house, or the speaker's doing a great job and you want to take a picture for a future publication, you can do it on the iPad and let us know. We will pull that picture off. Not many people use this feature, but feel free to snap a picture if you like. Over on the side, right next to the Voxer, you'll see the GAWP logo. This is brand new for the conference. It is a full-fledged conference app that is now available. It is available on the App Store, and it's also available on the Google Play Store. So depending on what kind of phone you have, go to that particular store and download the GAWP app. The data is already loaded, but I will say there will be a major update to the conference data that will import speaker bios, replace some things on the program that have been updated. But for the most part, the majority of the info is there. So you will have all sorts of information on this app. This app will tell you just about anything you want to know about the conference. It has the schedule, the exhibit hall, the exhibitors, hotel shuttles. It lists all of the GAWP sponsors, the speaker information. If you notice that when you click on a speaker, if their bio is in there, then that was one that you will be able to introduce properly. So you can actually use the app to preview your speakers of your session. There's a GAWP committee calendar there. There's some specials from the Savannah Convention and Visitors Bureau. There's helpful tips, and there's also a help center which lists all the GAWP staff. So be sure to download that app if you want to make that announcement during your session for everybody to download the app. We invite you to do that. We will have plenty of signage throughout the conference advertising this app, but feel free to bring it up during your session. Let's see, the last thing on there are a few things to remember. Moderator reports, please list attendance accurately. Also, if it's would be good for an operator article, please say so in the comments. And the presentation quality is key info. Please let us know that. The session rooms are set for fire code. I've had to put this in here because a lot of times some moderators want to reset their room for a particular discussion, maybe a panel discussion, something like that. If you're going to have that type of discussion, please let me know in advance. Each room that we have has been approved by the fire marshal. The aisles have to be a certain width. There has to be a certain number of tables in there. The chairs are in, the tables are in certain spots. And if these things get moved around, and by chance the fire marshal was to come through, it could cause problems. So one thing that I have never brought up before was this, because it was just kind of that information that the moderators, there was really no point in bringing all this up. But now that things sometimes get moved around, it has caused some issues. And so please, if something needs to be moved around inside of your session, please get with myself or another GAWP staff before doing that, because I have to run that through the convention center channels. Otherwise, there's a possibility of a fine in the rare case the fire marshal was to come through and see something that was not set up properly. No outside furniture or setups without prior approval. If you have a speaker that wants to bring in an exhibit booth or a piece of equipment, we need to know that ahead of time just to make sure we have no problems. So just please keep us in the loop on that, and it would be greatly appreciated. Certification points. If you are not the last session of the day, then you don't have to sign anything. This only applies if you are the very last session of the day. Now, if you are the last session of the day, you will be responsible for either initialing that particular day, because that person's coming back the next day, so they don't need a signature, but you will initial your initials on the line for that particular day. If they are not coming back, or if you're moderating on the last day of the conference, then you will sign the bottom, total the points, and set them on their way. So this only applies to the moderators that are moderating for the last session of the day. Feel free to drop by the GWP desk and ask for any clarification on this if you have any. My email will be up in a moment. Feel free to send me an email. If you need to have a few people help you sign, that is perfectly fine as well. We just ask that it be a committee member, a staff person if needed, a district director, a board member, somebody like that, another committee person that serves on the program committee. Someone like that could help you with the signing of the points if you need help doing that because of the crowd. And then once again, be sure to download the GAWP Events app. It's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Hopefully you got something out of this training session. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you have my email address right there in front of you. If this is your first time moderating, now you know what I look like. Feel free to flag me down at the conference and let me give you a warm GAWP welcome. I'm really not sure what that will be, but I'll figure something out between now and then. But we appreciate all you do for GAWP, and we look forward to seeing you in Savannah. Thanks a lot.